while the clock ticked louder than usual, and into this silence came Lena, an old college friend visiting from Toronto, her arrival sudden and bright, carrying stories, energy, and a smile that felt like fresh air entering a closed room, and from the first moment she stepped inside, something shifted, not sharply, not dangerously, but enough to be noticed, as Ethan laughed easily at her jokes, the sound surprising even him. And Claire noticed it too, how his shoulders relaxed, how his voice sounded lighter, and she felt a strange mix of relief and fear because she loved seeing him happy but wondered why it no longer happened with her. And the three of them talked quickly, words flowing without effort, jumping from memories to current lives, from jobs to dreams left behind, and as the conversation moved fast, so did emotions, though no one named them, and while Claire went to the kitchen to check the food, she paused, listening to Ethan and Lena talk about their college days, about how life turned out differently than expected, and when she returned, she saw something quiet but powerful, the way Lena looked at Ethan with real interest, not attraction that demanded anything, but care that listened, and Ethan responded without thinking, speaking honestly, saying things he hadn't said out loud in years, about feeling stuck, about missing passion, about wondering if life was supposed to feel more alive than this, and Claire felt a tightness in her chest, not anger, not jealousy, but awareness, because she shared those same thoughts and had never found the courage to speak them, and time moved fast as dinner finished, dishes were cleared, and music played softly in the background. The house now filled with voices instead of silence, and when Claire stepped outside to take a phone call from her sister, she stood in the cold air longer than needed, breathing deeply, as if preparing herself, and when the call ended sooner than expected, she walked back inside quietly, not trying to hide, just moving without sound, and stopped in the hallway when she heard Ethan's voice, low and real, telling Lena how lonely marriage can feel even when love is still there, and Lena answered gently, saying she understood, saying that sometimes people don't fall out of love, they just stop being seen, and Claire stood frozen, heart racing, knowing she should step in but unable to move, because nothing she heard was wrong, nothing crossed a line, yet everything felt dangerously close to truth, and in that moment she realized this was not about betrayal, it was about connection, the kind that sneaks up quietly and asks hard questions, and when she finally stepped into the room, both Ethan and Lena looked up at once, the air changing instantly, silence falling fast, Ethan's face full of worry, Lena standing quickly, respectful and unsure, and Claire saw it all clearly, the fear, the honesty, the unspoken feelings, and instead of shouting or accusing, she felt calm, almost clear, as if the moment had stripped away confusion, and she said nothing at first, letting the silence breathe, understanding that this night was already different, already past the point of pretending, and though none of them knew it yet, this was the moment everything began to change. The silence after Claire stepped into the room did not last long, because truth has a way of pushing itself forward when it has waited too long, and Claire finally spoke in a calm voice that surprised both Ethan and Lena, telling them to sit down because running from the moment would only make it heavier, and Ethan obeyed slowly, his hands shaking as he tried to explain but failing to find the right words, while Lena stood nearby, clearly uncomfortable but honest enough not to pretend nothing had happened, and Claire looked at them both and admitted that she had heard everything, not by spying but by accident, and instead of anger she felt clarity, because what she heard matched the emptiness she had been carrying for months, and she told Ethan that seeing him open up reminded her of the man she once fell in love with, the man who used to talk about his fears and dreams without holding back, and Ethan's voice broke as he apologized, saying he never meant to hurt her and never crossed a line, but he couldn't deny that talking to Lena felt easy in a way he had forgotten, and Claire nodded because she understood too well, explaining that marriage slowly turned into routine, that care replaced passion, and that silence replaced honesty, and Lena finally spoke, her words careful and respectful, saying she never came to cause trouble and never wanted to step into something that belonged to others, but she believed that honest conversation was better than polite distance, and Claire appreciated that, admitting that what hurt was not the conversation itself but the realization that all three of them were missing something important, and the room filled with fast-moving emotion as Claire admitted she felt invisible, that she missed being seen and desired as a person, not just as a partner who managed daily life, and Ethan listened without interrupting, realizing how deeply he had failed to notice her loneliness. And he told her that he still loved her but had lost the ability to express it, and the words came fast now, no longer trapped, as Claire said she did not want secrets or quiet suffering anymore, and if something was broken, she wanted to face it openly, not pretend it did not exist, and Lena suggested gently that maybe this moment was not about choosing sides but about understanding feelings before they turned into regret, and Claire agreed, saying that pretending everything was fine would be the real betrayal, and she surprised them both by admitting she felt drawn into the honesty, not threatened by it, because for the first time in years, the air felt real, and Ethan reached for Claire's hand, holding it tightly, knowing that this conversation could either end everything or begin something new, and as the night deepened, they talked faster, moving through fear, regret, and hope without pausing, knowing that once truth enters a room, it refuses to leave quietly, and though nothing was decided yet, one thing was clear to all of them as the clock passed midnight. Their lives had already shifted, and whatever came next would demand courage from each of them. The morning after their long, intense conversation brought a quiet tension to the house, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. And Claire woke early, her mind racing with thoughts she had never dared to speak, realizing that the honesty of last night had opened doors she wasn't sure she was ready to walk through. While Ethan moved around the kitchen carefully, making coffee, his hands trembling slightly, feeling the weight of both relief and guilt because speaking the truth had brought them closer but also made him painfully aware of how far they had drifted, and Lena lingered for another morning, sitting on the couch, watching them with an uncertain smile, unsure of where her presence fit now, yet feeling needed in some emotional way, and Claire surprised them both by inviting Lena to stay longer, not out of fear or obligation, but because she wanted to understand the feelings that had bubbled up too long unspoken, and as they all sat together, conversation moved quickly, flowing over confessions of loneliness, missed chances, and desires for life to feel alive again, with Claire speaking faster than usual, admitting she had felt unseen, unheard, and unappreciated, and Ethan responding with words that tumbled out without editing, apologizing for his inattentiveness, explaining that he never stopped loving her but had lost the skill to show it, while Lena added her perspective, gently pointing out how sometimes distance forms between people not from lack of love but from silence and unspoken expectations, and Claire nodded, absorbing each word, realizing that inviting honesty into the room had changed the rules, that they no longer needed to hide feelings or pretend everything was fine, and the energy in the house shifted quickly, a mix of relief and nervous excitement, because for the first time they were facing reality together, openly and without judgment, and Ethan reached for Claire's hand, their fingers entwining naturally, holding on to the connection that had been rekindled, while Lena watched, understanding that she was no longer an outsider but a witness to something delicate and important, and as the morning moved faster than their thoughts, Claire finally said, almost breathless, that staying honest, feeling vulnerable, and facing their emotions together was more meaningful than fear, and they all agreed to take things slowly, carefully exploring the feelings that had emerged without rushing into choices, without pretending, just allowing space for truth to grow between them, and though nothing was resolved entirely, the pace of their conversation and the intensity of their emotions created a fast-moving current that carried all three into a new phase of connection, understanding, and unexpected closeness, leaving them aware that hope, curiosity, and courage had replaced hesitation, and that the days ahead would demand honesty and openness, challenging them, but also promising a deeper bond than any of them had imagined before. Days passed after Lena returned to Toronto, leaving behind a quiet house that felt both emptier and fuller at the same time, as if her presence had left invisible traces in every corner, and Claire and Ethan moved through their days differently, noticing each other in ways they hadn't for years, speaking openly about feelings, hopes, and fears, touching hands with intention rather than habit, laughing more freely, and pausing when words became too heavy, while evenings were spent by the window watching the snow or sunset, sharing thoughts that used to stay locked inside, and Claire realized that joining in didn't mean changing her love or betraying her marriage, it meant allowing honesty, vulnerability, and emotional closeness to flow naturally without judgment, and Ethan discovered that listening and sharing truth rebuilt trust faster than any gesture or promise. While memories of Lena's visit lingered not as temptation but as a reminder that openness could bring clarity, warmth, and connection, and as they continued talking, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, they explored long-buried dreams, admitted mistakes, and found joy in small acts of kindness, like making coffee for each other or leaving little notes that said more than words could capture, and the house, once quiet in a lonely way, now felt alive with subtle emotion, with soft laughter, unspoken promises, and a sense of being truly seen. And Claire, standing by the window one evening, smiled at the snow falling in silent rhythm outside, thinking about how love is not about holding tightly but choosing to open your heart fully, about facing truth together even when it is uncomfortable, and realizing that she, Ethan, and the memories of the evening with Lena had all grown in emotional depth, learning that life changes not through dramatic gestures but through small, honest steps, through courage to confront fears, and willingness to feel deeply without rushing to resolve everything. And in that quiet, fast-moving current of emotion, Claire understood that happiness was no longer about perfection, it was about embracing reality, love, and connection, and as she looked at Ethan, she felt the fragile but steady hope of a new beginning, knowing that while challenges would come, they had chosen the path of honesty, presence, and emotional closeness, and that choice had already changed everything, creating a bond built on trust, awareness, and the courage to love fully, gently, and openly. And in that awareness, the story of that night, of confession, understanding, and connection, became a memory that would guide them, a soft but powerful reminder that love grows when hearts are willing to risk honesty, face feelings, and stay emotionally present, and that sometimes the deepest transformations happen not through drama or action, but through fast-moving emotional honesty that sweeps through life quietly yet profoundly, leaving space for love, hope, and growth to flourish.